This is a very short video about case headings, those formal and mysterious bits of text that appear at the top of every legal pleading that help the courts and you to keep the millions of documents filed in legal cases in order and attached to the right case and lined up to be dealt with appropriately. So what is a case heading? So all legal documents, all of the filings by the parties, as well as all of the orders issued by the court, have a formal title section called a case heading. Each court has its own specific format for case headings, but they all contain similar elements. And if you are unsure of what such documents look like in the court you're filing in, you can always ask the clerk for some examples, but also as long as you include all of this information, I'm sure that the court will probably not reject the filing on that basis, although some are pretty fussy about formats, particularly appellate courts. The Massachusetts courts where I practiced for a long time, the first thing that would happen with every document that came in is the clerk would whip out a ruler and measure the margins and the font sizes, and if they weren't appropriate, she'd hand you it back and refuse to accept it for filing. So yes, style matters. Anyway, each of the case headings contains similar elements: the jurisdiction and name of the court, the names of the parties and whether they're plaintiff or defendant, some sort of docket number or case number assigned by the court clerk that's attached to that case and make sure that all the filings in that case stay together, and the name of the document being filed, which will almost always include a statement of who it's being filed by and what rule it's being filed under. Remember, you may wind up with thousands, easily many thousands of documents in a single court case, even a not very big court case, and millions of documents in any given courthouse. So using the proper case heading on every document helps ensure your filing will not get lost and it will wind up being logged into the correct case and dealt with by the court in a timely manner. So here is a Vermont civil case heading. This is from an environmental court, a Vermont environmental court case. And this is actually from a judgment order or an order issued by the court. And the next slide will pick that apart with all of its pieces. You can see here the state centered as in the top heading, State of Vermont. That's the jurisdiction. The court, this is the Superior Court Environmental Division. There's only one environmental division that takes environmental and land use cases for the whole state. So in this case, that goes right there. The plaintiff here, the town of New Haven. The defendant, here named as Rogers Farnsworth. And it is polite and fancy to use either the end bracket or the end paren mark or a colon to make a vertical line between the names of the parties and the docket number. Interestingly enough, although technology has developed wonderfully in terms of word processing programs, this used to be a lot simpler in the earliest word processing programs. WordPerfect, which was designed specifically for law offices, had a vertical key and you could make a line up and down on a page. That does not, to my knowledge, exist anymore, and you have to tab over an equal number of spaces to make these marks. That being the case, quite frankly, they're becoming less common. People aren't using them as often, and it's just cleaner if they're not there, but it does look awful impressive if you use them. To the right of that is the docket number. Every heading will have a docket or case number, and there's a lot of information in that number depending on which court you are in. Here in Vermont, the first number is how many cases have been filed this year in that court. Here there were 128, followed by the month filed, followed by the year filed, here 2012, and then a little, in Vermont courts, there's a little 4-letter code after that. Here for environmental court, it's VTEC for Vermont Environmental Court. We'll see another one in a different count, in one of the county superior courts that has different letters. And then there's the title of the document, in this case, a judgment order. Here's a Vermont criminal case heading. See a similar format, a little bit cleaner style, slightly different information. We'll dissect it on the next slide. So here you have the state of Vermont and the court, the superior court at the top. But since there are superior courts in every county, unlike the environmental court, you put the county with a comma SS. I don't know why, that's old legal tradition. Instead of saying Addison County, you write Addison SS to the left to indicate that's in the Addison County Superior Court. Put the docket number. Again, it's the number of cases filed, the month and year that were filed. And here, it's an Addison County criminal case. So the 4-letter code is ANCR for Addison County criminal. Where it's civil, it would be ANCV for Addison County civil. In a criminal case, the initiating party is the state. In some states, this says people of the state, or in federal cases, it would say United States of America, and then versus the name of the defendant. Again, there's not a vertical line here, but it looks good and clean, and it's understandable, so the Vermont courts are happy to take it without one, and it's becoming a little less common, although I like the look of them. This states, the title states which party is filing this document. In this case, it's the defendant, Mr. LaFountain. It states what the document is. In this case, it was a motion to dismiss his criminal charges. And then lastly, it states which rule of procedure the document is filed under. Here it was the Vermont Rule of Criminal Procedure, Rule 12D, which allows parties to move for dismissal of criminal charges where the state doesn't have a basis for a case. This motion, by the way, was successful. There's a federal civil heading. Again, you should be recognizing the format. The docket numbers are a little different federally. They put the month year first, and then CV or CR for civil or criminal, and then the sequential case number after that. And this is a little bit more complex. As you can see, it's a civil case that I filed on behalf of a citizens group in the federal district court. Up top says U.S. District Court for the District of Vermont, and then you'll notice that there are a number of different defendants. Lastly, there are a bunch of other elements to legal document formatting, and we'll address those as we go. Those include page numbering, as well as paragraph numbering or line numbering, depending on the document. Headers and footers that may be required in some courts or are simply useful otherwise, even if they're not required. Signature blocks, and when we get to motions and other filings, there'll also be certificates of service.